A special welcome to Jonathan Lamb and Emeka. Emeka joining us from Jos in Nigeria, and Jonathan from Keswick in Cumbria, where his role with the Keswick Convention, I guess, is slipping into gear. And we'll hear a bit more about that in a moment, and the links we're hoping with Langham there. And then I'm going to leave Jonathan and Emeka in conversation about some of the work that Jonathan pioneered, actually, and Emeka is continuing with our Langham Preaching work in Africa and beyond. But before I do that, just if you can mute yourself if you're not actually speaking, then that helps with some of the feedback and volume. And the usual format, we're going to have a brief introduction, then Jonathan and Emeka are going to have a conversation about Langham Preaching, and they will mention some prayer points. Don't panic if your handwriting can't keep up with the flow of prayer points or whatever, because Mary will make them available in the chat box when we break into prayer groups, into breakout rooms, and she will put us into those rooms. So you will have access to a list of topics and prayer points that have already been assigned or mentioned. And you'll just need to click on that chat box to remind yourself of some of the issues to pray about, if that's there. Then, so we spend some time in those small groups in prayer, and then we come back together for a few minutes, and then we pray ourselves on our way. But we'll be slightly longer is the scheme tonight, just because we have got a couple of guests that we want to allow the conversation to flow for them, for our edification. If you need to leave early, don't panic. So if we can mute and be prepared to be put in a room, when we get into those breakout rooms, there'll be a host for each room, and they'll encourage us just to share in a sentence or two who we are and where we're speaking from, and then to spend some time in prayer based on the prompts in the chat box and stuff. If at the end of that time you find you can protect 3 or 4 minutes to come up for air and just to talk with the 5 or 6 in your group, then you might be able to share something personal in confidence to the group that's there, just to pray for each other before we join together centrally. So that's just a thought and a prompt there. But anyhow, welcome. My name is John Libby. It's a bit of a giveaway on Zoom because it's even printed on the screen for you if you move your cursor. But and it's my privilege to be National Director of Langham Partnership UKI. And I've been in that role for nearly certainly over 5 years now. And it's just been stunning meeting some of the work and those that are responsible for it under the Lord in different areas. And when I arrived, I missed someone who we didn't overlap. But Jonathan, it's really great to welcome you into this call. And you were associated with Langham for how long?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm not sure how to answer that. Quite a while, and it was before I joined the staff team for Langham Preaching. We had various events with Uncle John Stott, and I was also involved in some of the early discussions about the founding of Langham. But then I was on the staff team for about 13 years altogether.
Wow, right. And you're now, I think it's Minister at Large, unless that title has been refined or developed with the convention, the Keswick Convention.
Yes, that's right. Yes, I went from Langham Preaching actually to help here in Keswick because there's a big development program. And so I worked with the Keswick Ministries here, but then other people have taken up leadership now, and my role in a voluntary capacity is actually to travel to other related events around the world. There are about 80 similar events, large and small, in many countries, a lot in Japan, in India, in 1 or 2 in Africa, in Europe, in North America, there's quite a lot of activity. So Australia, New Zealand. So one of my jobs is to try to keep in touch with all those international events, to travel a little bit, and when we're allowed to travel, and to try to nurture the movement. I also continue have very happy links with IFES, with whom I previously worked, and also with Langham Preaching, of course. I'm still very glad to be involved whenever that's possible.
One of those satellite conventions is in Carlisle, actually, so far remote from Keswick.
Yeah, indeed. There's about 35 in the UK, actually, yeah.
The last few years, we've been largely under the encouragement of the late Peter Maiden, but also under James Robson and others. We've been trying to develop a partnership in some shape or form between Langham and the convention, because there's so many overlapping focus and aims and commitment to biblical exposition and mission. You know, several here I know I have met at when we were able to run a sort of stall there, and we're hoping to get back to that. But you know, hopefully you'll see some Langhamites around and some stall with information there as well, even this year.
Yes, indeed.
So tell us, while he can't hear, you know, how you know Emeka. When was your first meeting with him? And how did he do?
Yes, Emeka, we first met, I think, when Emeka was in the UK for the Cornhill training program. We were just discussing it earlier. And then subsequently, we've had contact because Emeka has also been very involved with the student ministry with IFES. And so I've been involved in some events in Africa with IFES and including in Nigeria. And then we've also now more recently, of course, become connected through the Langham Preaching work. And my last visit there was in 2017 to Nigeria. And so it's a real joy for me to see Emeka taking up a senior role for Langham Preaching, and particularly helping across the continent of Africa. It's a great joy. By the way, while I'm speaking, may I also greet all of our viewers and listeners. I've already scanned the list, and there are a lot of good friends I know. And greetings to you all, especially those of you dialing in from Africa. I can see Frank Shai and Mercy Herreri. We're very glad to renew fellowship with other Langham friends around the world. Anyway, Emeka, it's just a joy to have contact with Emeka once again.
And Emeka, welcome from Jos. And I'm going to step out of the loop here and leave you and Jonathan to fight it out and to find out a bit of each other and update us on what's happening in the world of Langham Preaching. But welcome to both of you. Over to you.
Thank you very much, John. And greetings again, Emeka. Would you like to greet everyone to make sure we've got sound and vision?
Thank you so much, Jonathan, and thank you, John, for the opportunity. Good to see you again. We saw last in Zimbabwe, and thank you, all the Langham. I will call you Langham brethren. That's what we do in Africa. We're brothers and sisters in Christ. So welcome. Glad to see you, all the Langham brethren. But more especially, the African team that I'm seeing here, Frank Shai is here, Mercy Herreri is here, and of course, Ed Moore. I can see Ed Moore somewhere. So thank you, Ed. I'm glad to see you here. Thank you.
Very good. Well, Emeka, let's begin by, you could just say a little bit about what your role is with Langham. Then I'm going to ask you a few questions about your own life and the situation, but maybe you could just tell us first, what is your role in Langham Preaching? And how did you come to be involved?
All right. Thank you, Jonathan. I currently serve as the Associate Director of Langham Preaching for Africa. My job basically is to assist the director, the Reverend Dr. Femi Adeleye, in providing leadership for the Ministry of Langham Preaching in Africa, and working with the various regional coordinators, two of them here. We work together to help to pioneer new preaching movements. We work together to train facilitators. We work together to train preaching club coordinators across the continent. Yeah, that's primarily what I do.
Well, that sounds enough. That's great. And how did you get involved? How were you fished into Langham?
Well, my very first close contact with Langham Preaching, apart from hearing about Uncle John Stott, if you are in IFES circle, you of course know that John Stott is a a household name, but my first close contact with Langham Preaching was at the Cornhill training course in the UK. Precisely, it was in June 2007 when Jonathan Lamb came to share about the vision of Langham. And of course, after that, we had some time to have conversation. And if you've had 5 minutes, 10 minutes with Jonathan, you know that it's so easy for him to pass on to you a vision. So he just warmed my heart on that day. And then when I came back to Nigeria in 2007, I, of course, joined the Langham Preaching Ministry here in Nigeria that also started that 2007 as a member of the national planning team. From that beginning, in 2011, I became the country coordinator for Nigeria, a role I served into 2014, and then 2015, I became the regional coordinator for Anglophone Africa, taking over from Uncle Emmanuel Oladipo. So that's been my Langham journey, really.
Lovely, thank you. And now I think everyone would like to know a little bit about you as a person, Emeka. So could you tell us about your family situation, where you're speaking from, maybe your city, your church situation, just very briefly?
All right, like the Zoom profile says, my name is Emeka Egbo, so it makes it easy for you to see the spelling and probably get the pronunciation. I'm married to Amarachi, and we are blessed with 3 children, a boy and 2 girls. We live in the city of Jos, north central Nigeria, just up north above Abuja, going towards the northern part of Nigeria. So I worship with the Methodist Church, where I serve as a lay preacher. And in the church, I basically help with preaching and leading Bible studies and providing some kind of spiritual guide and programs for the men's fellowship. So on a voluntary basis, that's what I really do. So my main work is with the Langham Preaching.
Lovely. And this is an impossible question now, and that is, can you give us a very quick overview of the countries that you're looking after in Langham in Africa? Maybe you can say a word about the ones which are quite well established and the ones which have recently been launched. Just a quick sketch.
Okay, thank you so much, Jonathan. I think the story of Langham Preaching Africa actually starts with Jonathan Lamb. So I think we should have been doing the interview the other way around. Maybe Jonathan giving us the story. But really, I think the first preaching seminar for Africa was held in Uganda in 2002. And that was actually held by Jonathan Lamb himself. Which was followed by Kenya in 2005, and then Zimbabwe in 2005, and Ghana by Uncle John Stott himself, the same 2005, and then Democratic Republic of Congo, DRC, and Cote d'Ivoire, the same 2005, run by Gordon Woolard. Of course, so many other countries now followed, but the most recent countries are Togo, in 2012, and then of course Malawi in 2017, and Botswana also in 2017. In Africa, most of the countries are not more established because they started early or whatever, but somehow we have 4 countries that we classify as more established. You have Zimbabwe, which was started in 2005, and then you have Ghana, you have Nigeria, and then you have Burkina Faso. When we say countries more established, it actually means they can do more without foreign support, external facilitators. They're more or less self-dependent, they are self-propagating, self-governing, self-funding. They can do their seminars with little or no support from outside. And I think these 4 countries so far in Africa are there: Zimbabwe, Ghana, Nigeria, and Burkina Faso.
That's great. And I think online, you mentioned Edmond, I think Gordon Wallard is also online this evening. Our greetings to them. And they've helped in Francophone Africa. And now increasingly, as you say, a strong African team looking after the work. Emeka, one big question we'll be asking in our own minds, I'm sure, is how is it possible during COVID-19 for the Langham work to continue? Because it's built around a cycle of seminars, as probably most of our guests online know. And then, of course, it flourishes because of small preachers' clubs, preachers' groups, which meet week by week or month by month. We might ask you in a minute about COVID-19 generally, but could you say how it's been possible to continue with the Langham preaching work during the pandemic?
Yeah, thank you, Jonathan. I think I can say at this point that we are grateful to God that Africa was actually largely spared in the first and second wave of the COVID-19 pandemic. But the truth is that it slowed our work down in Africa. Of course, because of the challenge of internet penetration, we have low internet penetration. Of course, the cost of data that so many rural pastors will not be able to afford, and then access to Android phone and laptops and the rest of it. But across Africa, we had so many things that went on during the pandemic and thereafter. Like we had some online seminars in Uganda using Meet, the Google Meet. Of course, we had some in South Africa, some trainings that went. We had Ghana having about 5 refresher programs and online prayer meetings, just like we are having. And of course, Nigeria also had a refresher program using the Zoom. But we also had good use of the WhatsApp groups running our preaching clubs in Sierra Leone and also in Nigeria. In Nigeria, we had meetings where we had almost 60 people in attendance on WhatsApp. And throughout the pandemic, we were able to walk through the book of First Thessalonians. We walked through the book of is it Micah now, right? And then we had people preparing what we call the side A and the side B, presenting it, having a model sermon and the feedback. Yeah, so we had some things that went on during the pandemic and across Africa, and that was good. But the good news is that since the beginning of the year, we have actually resumed face-to-face seminars and workshops in several countries, keeping with the COVID guidelines. So we've had seminars, over 4 seminars that happened in Burkina Faso. We've had seminars that happened in Togo. We've had 4 seminars and 1 online seminar that happened in Nigeria. And of course, a seminar in Malawi, and then in South Africa. So we've seen some things going on, a kind of hybrid, and we thank God for that.
Excellent, excellent. Now, when we think of your own country, the Western media do cover fairly frequently many of the challenges in the north of Nigeria, and particularly Boko Haram and the way in which Christian believers and well, other insurgents as well, Christian believers have been impacted. And we've been praying also for some of the school children who've been abducted and these things. Could you just say what the situation is for believers in the north of the country?
Well, the truth is that we've had a very serious security challenge in Nigeria, especially in northern Nigeria, beginning with the jihadist movement Boko Haram, and then moving on to the Fulani herdsmen and the bandits. We've had so many churches burned. We've had so many people killed. There are areas in northern Nigeria today where you used to have churches. There are no churches there. There are areas, villages that people have deserted. On last Sunday, I went to preach in one of our local churches, just about 80 kilometers outside of Jos. And right there, there were people from 2 other villages that had to move to this village. And they were telling me that not less than 5 villages beyond where the church is, there are no people living there again. The villagers have all been chased away. The churches, some of them destroyed, and some of them, their homes have been pulled down, and they are just basically refugees in their own country. We call them internally displaced people, having to live with not having a home of their own and not having a source of livelihood. And that's the reality of life for many people in northern Nigeria.
Emeka, it's very distressing news. Has it impacted the Langham Preaching work in any way?
Yes, of course. A very practical example is that one of the early cities that we were to launch our Langham Preaching program is Maiduguri, and in northeastern Nigeria. In the early days of the Boko Haram, we had actually even sent the materials, sent the books ahead of time. And then when the crisis broke up, we had to just call off. And then, of course, you also know that because of the increasing rate of kidnapping across the country, people are becoming conscious of traveling. People are becoming careful. So the rate of our seminars have actually reduced because you want to be careful, you want to be cautious. Take, for instance, in a country that is not at war, so to say, there's no formal war in Nigeria, but the record has it that over 5,800 people have been killed in Nigeria between January and June this year alone. And we're talking about over 2,900 cases of people kidnapped, and some of them killed, some of them released after paying ransom. And, so yeah, it's really affected movements, it's affected our conferences, it's affected life generally.
Mm. Thank you. We will definitely pray for that, I'm sure, in our groups in just a moment. Emeka, just a couple of questions before we finish. One is, as you look ahead now for the rest of the year, are there particular plans, particular countries that might be starting up, or what do you see going forward for the rest of this year?
Jonathan, the COVID-19 pandemic has made it difficult for detailed planning. It has made it difficult for travels and seminars. So the uncertainty we're having globally and in Africa, especially with the third wave, we have the third wave coming up in Africa. We are seeing increasing infections. It's making it really difficult to concretize plans, but we're actually looking forward to a leadership meeting in September to be able to look at what is possible and what we can do as we look up to God.
Yeah.
But the concern is really that is the uncertainty around the pandemic. The third wave is making planning, long-term planning, difficult for us. It's a huge challenge for us.
Sure. Well, I think all of us online understand that challenge. So we'll include that in our prayers in just a moment. So there are quite a few things we've drawn out which we should sort of focus in for prayer. But if you have any specific requests, Emeka, before we finish our conversation, for you personally or for the work, please do let us know. What would you like us to pray for?
Okay, I think personally, I will still appeal we continue to pray for Nigeria, continue to pray that the nation knows peace, and for Africa too, do continue to pray, just like we have the issue of insecurity in Nigeria. We also have increasing insecurity in the Democratic Republic of Congo, with the rebel challenges there, making work and travel difficult in DRC. We also have the problem of insurgency in northern Burkina Faso. Of course, we also have a political unrest, so to say, in Southern Africa with the riots that's been happening, and then in Ethiopia. So do pray for the overall peace of Africa. But for Langham Preaching, I really want to start on a note of thanksgiving, because as I look at what has happened in Langham Preaching, a lot of things gives me joy. You know, as we're doing that, I remember a young man I met at Mokopane. Shai will know him. He finished, he was a young seminary graduate, and he wasn't sure whether he should come to Langham Preaching. But after the 3 meetings, he told me that this has really improved his preaching. This has made him understand preaching beyond what he was taught in seminary. And today he's one of the young people leading the preaching club in Mokopane. I remember a Pentecostal background, non-seminary graduate in South Sudan, who worked with us in Langham Preaching. And today his preaching has improved, and he's part of the leadership team of Langham Preaching in South Sudan. You know, I see over 138 active preaching clubs now in Burkina Faso, and they give me so much joy. So I just want us to thank God for the fruit of Langham work across Africa, as we see young pastors, trained pastors, untrained pastors having their preaching skill grown and then improved upon, and they become instruments that God will use in bringing his word faithfully and clearly and relevantly to the people of God. So huge thanksgiving. Then I want us to pray for our plan for pioneering work. There are places we need to do some pioneering work in Africa, which is being delayed because of the COVID situation. So do pray for opportunities, the right links, the right partners that will work with us in Chad, in Gabon, in Niger, in Angola, and in Namibia. We also seen an increase in our translation work across Africa. We want to pray that God will continue to help us in that. In September, Mercy will be, in October, really, Mercy, who is here with us, will be going to Tanzania for them to work on the level 2 material in Kiswahili. Currently, we have a lot of level 1 material in local languages. Do pray that as we move into the level 2 materials, the Lord will give us the right hands, the right people that will do the translation. So pray for ongoing translation work, pioneering work, and give praise and thanks to God for pastors that God is transforming their preaching and teaching ministry through the work of Langham across Africa.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Thank you very much indeed, Emeka. Simon's been putting things in the chat box for summarizing, and Mary's been helping us too. So we're going to pray for you personally and your family for those pioneering efforts for the COVID situation. We've got lots to pray for, and we want to say, Emeka, how much we appreciate your time this evening, but also the leadership you're giving along with Femi and Mercy and Frank and others on this call. You have a huge challenge and you're facing it with such courage and inspiration. So we want to thank you very much for all you're doing. We can't think of a more demanding continent really with so many challenges, but we're sure that God's going to keep providing you with the grace that you need to do this work. Thank you, Emeka, for joining us. And I'll hand now to John.
Thank you, Jonathan.
God bless you, brother.
Thank you.